Um, Decided to shoot another video today. The reason for it is because I I realized that I had a nightmare a couple of days ago, and I woke up midway through and I wrote it down. And in the nightmare, there was a vivid interaction between me and like different parts of my life. And I was asking this question: what is a curse? Fuck yeah, right? Some intense shit. And I remember it was like four different settings that happened over a period of literally like in my dream about 5 minutes. So it was a setting where a lot of people were happy and enjoying themselves, and it was just like in a pubish clubbish thing where people were having conversations, and I was talking to them, and then we were talking more the stuff that I like to talk about, right? The stuff that's kind of like interesting to me, which is more what are your thoughts, what are your intentions, what are the things that you are actually considering, what are the statements you're making in your life, do these statements work, have they satisfied you in a way. And I part of the dream, like somebody says, was laughing that it was like, fuck man, like I'm cursed, I can't seem to do this right. And then I asked the question in the dream, what is a curse? And the minute I asked that question in the dream, like an entire crowd of people came and started having a conversation with these people. And so I stood up and I went to a different place, and it was like still the same setting. And I sat down and I was like perfectly cool by myself, but I was thinking, what is a curse? Naturally, I was in the dream. Like, I cannot stress this enough. I actually woke up and wrote it down. This is it. This is it written down. So when I asked that question, what is a curse? And then I came to this answer specifically. It's a series of events driven by behavior that leads to outcomes often undesirable. That was my response in the dream. Now, as I was sitting alone, that group like left, and I was like back to myself. I reflected on my life, which is basically this is how normally things happen. I'd be having a conversation, people find interest in something different. Maybe the conversations are too heavy, maybe they themselves are not interested, they're just making small talk. But ultimately, three of the people came back and sat with me, and they go like, "So what is a curse?" And I explained it to them. And I explain exactly what I read right now: a series of events driven by behavior that leads to outcomes often undesirable and the same outcome. But then all of them stood there and like were actually like thinking about it. Because if you think about it, normally any form of curse is kind of like if we are to relate a curse to something that's driven by us, like for example, I'm fat, I'm cursed. Are you actually exercising? Are you like doing the things that make you healthy instead of like doing, like, are you focusing on the things that make you not be this way? Be eating, being exercising, being just like mentally not abusing yourself or changing the mental image that you have of yourself and stuff like that. Sorry, the wind was blowing. So, anyways, not to enter deeply into the metaphysics of life and all those things. And then I asked them a question. And the question was, but do you know the cure? Because ultimately, like my reasoning is taking me there. Remember, I'm still in the dream. And the minute that happened, instantly, these people kind of like, while they're trying to ask me, things got crowded. A few people came to speak to me this time. And I try to respond while still being a part of this conversation. But for some reason, I get dragged out of it. So that's probably my mind telling me, like, I don't know. I don't know how dreams work. But anyways, from these people, these are people from my past, and these are people that I kind of like uh, hang out with at one point, and then suddenly more people arrived that like I worked with at one point, and after that, the people that I recently studied with at one point. And by the time I actually left the pub, I saw the entirety of my family. And all I could think about was, I know the fucking cure. I know the fucking cure. I know what would be the antidote. Actually, not the cure, the antidote to such a thing. And while I was like repeating in my head, like, This is a curse, I know the antidote. This is a curse, I know the antidote. I basically find myself in my room after everyone kind of like is ordering their cars and leaving. I find myself going to my house in my room, and a certain fear like came over me. And the minute that happens, I kind of like try to open my eyes, but I was like dead in my sleep. And after that, I respond with like, I raise my head and I realize I'm dreaming. And then the minute that realization came to me, like I was like, oh, it's okay, I'm dreaming. But half of me was still in that state. So I kind of like was like, you know what, man, go. And what is a curse? And what is the antidote for the curse? And that's where I started writing down. And I explained my dream and I explained the curse. And I kind of wrote a few things, but one of them is belief at the core is what drives you and challenges you. So, a curse, when people mention it, it's more from a belief standpoint. Like, you have to truly believe something out of the ordinary is affecting your life. The same belief could be switched because if you're only reflecting on the negatives, I guess, you're probably going to get to see only these things and then end up believing that you're just like unlucky or something. It's super easy for you to kind of like create a different pattern on a day-to-day basis and consistently build on top of the belief that that's not the case, which eventually would lead you to a different set of beliefs. So here, man, I kind of like write, but if a daily contribution is gifted to life, which would lead to a contribution of laziness, would lead to you being, I don't know, just lacking in energy. A contribution of activity would actually lead to you having more energy. So it's just like the different outlooks. But for some reason, it felt personal to me. And this thinking process kind of like kept on going and going. And here's like, I write, it makes sense since our days start anew with us, but our own consciousness continues from the day before, and life extends itself to the new days ahead. So every day is actually repeating itself in a different way. Night and darkness. The minute they come, there's like a semi reset between you and everything else, which is, I think, what other people speak about as an opportunity, which is what I think people speak about as more of a all right, so if today didn't work, what am I going to do tomorrow? Right? This kind of logic that allows you to start fresh every day, even though the day is fresh, it's a completely new day, but everything that happens inside of it is carried on from one day to another. And it's fascinating because you cannot choose what to carry to the next day. There's always a choice that you have. Like some things, some memories are carried for for years, and some stories are carried for thousands of years, sorry, and some memories of your own are carried for years, and some memories are depleted within 5 6 seconds, and some things stick with you, some things don't. So ultimately, the cure, the antidote for such a word, for such a an existence, is a kind of is a kind of competent acceptance of the mundane struggles of daily life, but actually approaching them instead of letting them encroach on you. And I elaborate enough on it until finally here I kind of end it with the love of oneself will manifest our reality to the world, which means ultimately, if we hate ourselves, it's going to eventually lead to you kind of being cursed. But if you love yourself and you treat yourself accordingly, because like it's easier for us to neglect a whole lot of things that we should do for ourselves. And it's only easy because if you just don't do anything, that starts happening. Whilst if you're consistently doing something, then everything that contributes to that starts happening. And I think that's basically what I wanted to like explain to everyone that came into my dream. But it's a shame nobody kind of wanted to listen. The few that wanted to listen got obstructed, even though I don't remember their faces or don't remember who exactly they are. But it's funny how you're kind of given the chance to express yourself, but literally in the dream, like everything that has historically been a part of me came to obstruct my conversation, whilst everything that was new, like the initialization of the dream, were like a bundle of people and a few of them were interested, and then after that only three came about. It's like it's like a sifting effect, like, out of all the people that are there, three were interested, and that was enough for me to actually explain. But then everything concerning me and my past or my history and the people that are in my life basically kind of found their way to come and obstruct what I was trying to say. So I'm very glad I woke up, and I'm very glad I wrote it down, and I'm very glad I got to actually like return to it right now. Thank you. Video number 13.